Hey guys, welcome to the Deadly Podcast. Pretty excited about this podcast. Got two deadly fellas coming on, Alan Palmer and Tyrone Lynch, who representing Red Dust today. How you going, fellas?
Good. Thanks for having us on your podcast.
Thanks.
No worries at all. So Red Dust, tell us a little bit about who they are.
Red Dust Role Models has been around, I think, for around 25 to 30 years. Off the back of a fellow named John Van Groningen, who was based in Melbourne. In the early days, he was a flying pastor or flying padre that used to visit the remote communities here in the Territory. And he was also the chaplain for one of the football clubs in Melbourne. And he worked with sports players, the national sports team. So what happened is that there was interest of his stories when you go back to Melbourne about these about the remote communities and the people and the experiences that he had. And some of the sports players wanted to experience that and asked if they could go along. And then from what I've heard is that from the first trip out to a community in the Territory here at, I think it was Lajamanu, the basketballers went to the local basketball court and the children flocked to him. And the visionary man that he is, his brain started to tick and thought that there could be something positive to come out of it. And Red Dust Role Models was starting to take form. And here we are.
Very good. I've worked out at Large Manu. I did some work out there, so I know how influential people can be when they actually just give a bit of themselves. So especially when people are listened to and heard and opportunities are brought there. When you mention about mentoring, tell us a little bit about the mentoring that you're doing within your program for Red Dust.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we do naturally. We how we engage, how we conduct ourselves, how we are involved with each other on a personal level, and that's I guess something that we do naturally, but then to bring that into a working environment, to be able to show that there is potential for us all to have a place. I think in this space for a minute, there's been an expectation of Indigenous people to provide their intellect and their know-how for little to no fee. So one of the things that we do is to give value through an economic lens. What we do in our personal lives, we get an incentive of a paycheck that we're able to share. So that's something that we try to showcase for other fellas that are going through life and mentoring in their own right, whether it's with their children or their nephews or cousins or brothers or uncles, to show that it's actually valuable in what they do, and that their experiences and their livelihoods is something to aspire to. So Red Dust Role Models has gone beyond looking at the top tier of sports stars or success, or how we see people's journeys to where they get to. I'm talking in terms of your top sports stars, that role models are actually local and they're within our own communities and family structures. You know, the dad that gets up every morning and goes to work. He doesn't aspire to be anything more than just a provider. But that is just as good and valuable as the next person.
Absolutely. And when you talk about, you know, doing things naturally and traditional ways before colonization, this is how blackfellas did things. You know, we showed each other, we grew each other up, we shared everything. And that's all been lost. And it sounds like, you know, you fellas are embedding that again, reminding, you know, this worked for how long? Thousands of years. It's and it works again, you know, our connection, our culture. We actually walk with that person or our kids, you know, to show them. It's not about this society now where mothers and fathers are just trying to make big dollars and the kids are in daycare and all this kind of stuff. We've really lost like that natural way of being, which is healthy. So for you guys to be here and talk about doing things naturally and valuing being a dad, that's huge. You know, being successful is not having thousands of dollars in your bank and a big flash car and house and that kind of thing, you know, especially for Aboriginal people, because connection and culture and family, that's our priority, right? And I feel like if we can get that back, that's our strength, that's our success, and that's how we heal.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's it's however we measure or rate success within the program or the way that we've developed it, success is in the eye of the beholder, not in the eye of the observer. So we don't try to push someone in a direction that they don't want to be in. If a fella's happy, or if a family's happy just having a family unit, then that's perfect. If the opportunity or the potential to grow that, well, then we're there to support that. Yeah, so you're exactly right. You know, the sayings, and you could pull them from anywhere. You know, it takes a village to raise a kid, and that's what we come from. We within the program, and I guess the unique position in that in which the organisation is in, is that we've had the ability to amalgamate the two philosophies together. We come from a unique part of the world, as you know, working up in Lajermani, where culture and social structures are all intertwined. So we bring that with us on any of our programming and conversation pieces with the fellas that we work with. There's certain rhetoric that we try to avoid. We don't refer to our fellas as clients or you know, we keep them away from the statistical data analysis. We don't look at conditions. You know, we look at a person holistically. We don't compartmentalize or prioritize a certain thing over the next. And that's the benefit and the I guess one of the successes and why we've had the ability to get the notoriety and to get the engagement that we've had, because we are traversing this landscape, not at the expense of our heritage, but we're bringing it along with us, and that's what's bringing fellas closer to our program. Yeah,
and given the background that we have culturally, with education, European education, we have that ability to see young fellas, their well-being and how they're doing. So we sort of use that ability to help them to grow and be a better father, better uncle, better brother, better son. And yeah, it's a bit difficult at times, but to navigate your way through that sort of area of people's well-being, like it's touch and go. And I think that most of the time talking to these fellas is important, to have that connection, like that cultural connection, and being Aboriginal is another one that it automatically connects us. And so sort of we know what they're thinking, they know what we're thinking, and with that connection, like you build a bond. And so families and other fellas start spreading the word, and they start talking, oh, so and so's over there, and we probably know one another's from country and families, that are all, it's all connected.
Yeah, dreaming, everything.
Yeah,
Skin, yeah,
our cultural stories and
yeah. So it's a yeah, that's what it's at. I mean, we bring we bring all of that lived experience together, and that's what it is. And again, changing the rhetoric. We're not up at the front being facilitators. We're part of we're part of the group. And instead of facilitating or teaching, we're learning from each other. It's going back to that communal structure where we're accountable to each other and we learn from each other. Yeah.
And that's something that I read in the article that stood out for me too, is around, you know, lived experience and connection. And I know I've done a lot of work in sort of government spaces, and it's just horrific for me because it's just not the right, it doesn't work. Like you said, black fellas working with black fellas. And it's something that I read as well, because we get each other. We have an advantage because we do live that, even though every black fella is different. My black fella journey very different to you fellas, and I just know I worked in Cherbourg, and I love Cherbourg. I don't know if you guys know about Cherbourg. It's a mission in Queensland. And I worked in the AOD space, the alcohol and other drugs, and just the people that I worked with, they said, look, Kelly, we can't work with white fellas. They just don't get it. We can't, they haven't walked our shoes. So, putting that self-determination with Aboriginal people, it's not about just ownership. It's all this stuff, the connection, the trust, everything like that. Because if you don't provide those safe environments and you don't have that connection and trust, you're going to get a superficial engagement. So people are going to just tell you whatever you need to hear just to get you out, get you away, oh, we've done this. Having that connection is the biggest key to getting good, like making change or whatever the person wants for their life, because they'll have ownership on the work they're going to do with you guys. Like you said, those goals are determined by them and at their pace, and it's realistic for them. So we need them to be driving that, and for them to drive that, they have to be able to have a voice, be true, safe.
Yeah.
Like you see it everywhere, Kelly. A black fellow on the street will walk up to another black fellow and then engage in a conversation. And you see them throwing their arms, like pointing directions everywhere, like I'm going that way, this and that, sign language, And so you'll see an Indian walk up to an Indian, an Asian walk up to an Asian, European walk up to a European. You very rarely see what do you call it, black fellow talking to an Asian.
Yeah.
Unless the other one's asking questions, but you're exactly right.
Cigarette or something.
You're exactly right. And that's part of the thing. Like, it's for us as blackfellas, we can't be told without experiencing it, and that especially as a young fella, a young Indigenous male, like we're told over and over, don't live the way that I live. Don't you don't need to go down this path. There's a different route. There's another way of living. But sadly for us, we have to experience that for us to know which is good and which is bad. And it's not to say that there's a good and bad side to it. Like a lived experience, if learnt from, will always end up being a positive and set you on the right trajectory. But we shouldn't have to, and this is a key component to our I guess philosophy. It's not written, but we shouldn't have to traverse this world at the expense of our heritage. And if we bring that along the journey with us, then we become better people. We become better fathers, better uncles, better brothers, because we have something to share. And that's the key thing. Like every single fellow that engages with our program or that's out there, they have something to offer.
You know, when you mentioned we have to learn, we have to do it to learn, but that's a real thing. Why in this day and age are we have these expectations on us to be perfect and just be told? That's not a natural way. Like in real life, you learn through experience, and your elders are there for you to bounce back and say, yep, see now, support you, love and care for you, and on you go to your next lesson that you learn from. It's such an unrealistic society today, and it's very ill. So I'm really glad that you mentioned this, and that's what you're talking about with your kids and things, because they need to understand this, that, hey, it's just a learning, and that's okay. Not to be made feel like crap or anything because of that, because that's just how it naturally is.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
And it's just learning to be a good person overall, and to see someone grow from this person to that person, because there's a change that people don't really see, or don't even see at all.
And that's one of the scary things, especially. Yes.
Sorry, the shame and guilt has been put on not being perfect. And that's what's staying inside of us and leading us to alcohol, drugs, food, even whatever your coping thing is, because we're not being able to be honest, come back to that and say, well, yep, this is a lesson learned, and get that support to move forward. And that's why organizations like Red Dust and the others that are out there doing this kind of work are so important.
Yeah, we have that. So self-fulfilling prophecy in our communities is so true, and it's so right. So you have the opposite side of that, in which you have stereotypes and opinions. But we're at a point where we are now mature enough, I think, in terms of colonization, to make our own determinations of who we are. And the scary thing about all of this is us as Indigenous people, when we're moving forward, it's hard for us to let go of our identity, and to step outside of that. And that's one of it's one of the elements that contributes to us not succeeding. The reason is because if you step outside of that identity space, you start to become lost within your own self. Who are you at the end of the day? When your own community members or your own family members are looking at you saying that you're a sellout and things like that. But what you're actually doing is moving forward. And again, this is the trick. We shouldn't have to traverse this landscape at the expense of our heritage. If we can carry that with us in moving forward, we will always have our identity. We will always know where we are on this continent or in this world. We will always carry our ancestors with us. We will always carry our families with us. the self-fulfilling prophecy. We've always been told who we are. Even if you're looking at the historical documentation, it's always been from an observer's point of view. But what we're bringing is a lived experience, and the experience of what we've been told and the way that we've been raised, and we have an ability to be able to separate which is which of this life is are we carrying and reflecting of through a cultural context, and which is a colonial context. So to be able to separate the two and say, well, in actual fact, our sophistication and the structures in which our societies have thrived have real beneficial gain for us as individuals in this life. But we use that success in moving forward, whatever our vision of success is, to be able to gain and acquire that. And sadly, we're confused about who we are, because we've been told so often that this is what you are. This is, and at times we regurgitate that information. Regurgitate may be a strong word, but that's what we do. We're reflecting what we've been told. We're reflecting the same rhetoric in which they've been in which we've been told. And we do it on a national level. We do it in public arenas all the time, especially when we're referring to us being here for 60,000 years. That's not our story. That's a story that we've been told. We've been here since before creation. That's our story. That's who we are. That's the connection that we have. And the more that we can encourage our fellas to carry that sense of pride in which our elders had in maintaining, and then using the same language in terms of our structures, but using the same language which is referred to other civilizations or other societies, it puts us on the same level, the same par as any other ancient civilization out there. So we do change the language in which we use, the English language that is. When referring to that, we break down the elements in which the word culture encompasses, from civilization to societies, traditions, customs, and then cultures. But we as Indigenous people, we reflect everything through the term culture, and it's so natural for us to do that, because that's the what do you call it? That's the correct vernacular, or the words that's used when referring to us and what it is that we come from.
Yeah, that you've mentioned some new concepts to me, so I can grasp a little bit, but I'm sure there's people that are going to be watching this that will be able to. I'm looking at my phone here thinking, oh, I need to Google some of these big deadly words that you're saying too. No, but thank you for sharing that. But I want to come back to two things: identity and belonging. So when we're doing this kind of work and connecting, what's the ultimate goal? We want improvement, we want change, right? For the better for the person, or whatever they want to do. We grow up with identity and belonging. Say we've got this intergenerational trauma, and then we're helping people change, and then you're changing your identity and belonging, and it's such a lonely path, and all of a sudden your mob and everything are disconnecting in that sense too. We're disconnecting when we're making that change. You guys would see that firsthand. Do you have many yarns around that, and how do you support people around that?
Even us being in the positions that we are, it's that step. It's almost like a grieving process.
It is.
It's
lived experience right here.
Yeah, and it's a very lonely and scary road to travel. But knowing that the strength on the other side and the ability that you have to be able to reflect and bring people along the journey and support that process, it's really empowering. That we've helped. Well, we've been a part of, local fellas starting their own business. We're in the process now of supporting that. And to see that, and then the same messaging to bring the family along, to set a legacy, to continue a legacy, are all really important. And I think there's a lot of words in the English dictionary that we can reflect in our own societies. And putting a value on that. Like traditionally, I sat down and thought about this the other day. Like we value wealth in today's society, or the world values wealth through money and acquisition of physical things, right? And then I was sitting down thinking about what the old people valued back then, and it's amazing when you sit down and think that our currency and what we acquire and the value of it's knowledge, it's information. That's what was important. It was to know songlines. It was to know the connection between your neighbouring nations, your neighbouring country, to know and acquire all of this information, the sacredness of it. Yeah, it's quite amazing, and we do that in today's society. With preschool and prep and primary school and high school and then university, and we acquired all this wealth of information, but we only use a small percentage of it, which is valuable to whichever organization or business that we're in, to acquire the means that we need to survive. And we use this in our program, through the context of being a man, and what that means, and yeah, it's the same conversation, and it's a constant learning experience, and that's what's great about it. That's what's great about us, is because we never stop learning. And someone's experience we can relate to, and we learn from it, and then we practice it in our own lives.
Yeah, I believe people are rich in knowledge and country, and that's what we're trying to put back to the fellas and say, you got a big country back there, you got all this sacred sites and places to show, and like there's a lot of it. And looking at one place is just connected to the next one.
Yeah.
So having that going from this place to that place, and giving them back, like telling them, going to the followers to say, look, you're a rich person, get your knowledge back, and use that knowledge to can help you with your family and friends, and
and that's from sorry.
The value of health. If you don't have health, when I went through university, we learned about this theorist, and his name was Karl Marx, and he is the theorist of capitalism, and he believed that this world is about profit. Everything else doesn't mean nothing, and that's how it's run. And I bring that with me, and that's how it is, this society right now, and that's why we're ill. If we, people say that we're bored, there's nothing to do. If you start learning how to look after yourself and connecting to country, when I was over in Alice not so long ago, and I went out to Simpsons Gap, I could just stare up at that big wall, that and I just laid there for a long time, and I just thought, how blessed, how wealthy, there's so much we can do to look at our health. And if we shift our focus, our values, our attitudes around health, and focus on that, you're never bored, because there's so much you can do,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
We get dizzy when we look at that
Yeah.
and rocks like
Yeah, it's too
Yeah,
big.
it's such a
Right.
beautiful country out there. Like it's and I think, you know, you get a lot of tourists there, but to actually, you know, go there as a black fella and you know this spiritual connection, it's really strong too. But I just think there's so much beauty, not just in Alice Springs, but you know, all over Australia. And you're never alone because your ancestors are there. Like, you know, I talked about being alone through that change.
Yeah.
We're never alone. But the thing is, what I want to come back to as well is, and you said, you know, people are empowered and they're starting their own business, or like you fellas, you are now there to walk that journey with others. That's comforting. You fellas aren't alone. You know, like look at the rewards you get from walking that journey with someone else and guiding them and
Yeah.
being that support when they need someone, you know, they feel like they're lost or that kind of thing. So
yeah, exactly. And look, we as in this generation of people are in a lucky position. And I say that we're in a lucky position because we have access to a wealth of information. If we take the time to learn both systems to benefit ourselves, and that's not being selfish, but to benefit ourselves, because we as Indigenous people always look for each other to bring each other along for the along the journey. We're in a unique position because of wealth of knowledge that's out there to utilize and use the information to change the language to reflect the sophistication and the beauty of what it is that we come from, bringing along our journey, bringing along our communities, our families, our heritage, what it is that's allowed us to live and maintain on whatever time frame you want to put on it. That's a real, it's a privilege, but it's also a what's the right word? It's a privilege, but it's also our right. It's there for us.
And I think that's a great message to end on. We're finishing up with our time. Is there anything really quickly that you guys want to say before we finish up?
You can't look after anyone else if you can't look after yourself.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
And I'll end on I guess as an Aranda man, I welcome you through your Zoom lens to Aranda country, and I acknowledge the lands that we're both on, and thank the elders past, present and future, emerging leaders, emerging knowledge holders, and thank you for your time, and I hope that someone gets something out of this.
And thank you fellas for coming on. Thank you for that acknowledging. And when I come back over there, I'm going to hit yous up, catch up, and
yeah, for sure.
you know, yeah, connect up. So I definitely want to get back up over to Alice at some stage.
Yeah, for sure.
No worries.
Thanks guys,
Gilly.
and keep doing great work.
Thank you.
See you.
All right, you too. All right, bye-bye.